had a lot of fires. Our worst accident happened a couple years ago in December when the car got upside down, caught on fire, and I got a few burns on my hands, my face, and my legs and feet. But my first thought was, is this thing ever gonna stop, you know, sliding? And then when I got out of the car, this finger here was bent around to my wrist almost, and I said, damn, I broke my finger again. And I just broke it a year earlier, and it just got where I could use it and broke it again. When I first got in the car and stepped on the throttle, the thoughts came back to me a little bit. And it made me a little bit better driver, I think. It made me awful careful. Well, it's pretty frightening when you're upside down and going backwards and on fire, and you just have to sit there because you're harnessed in the car, and fire will be all around you, and you just got to stand it till the car gets stopped and somebody puts the flames out. Pretty scary.
And Herb and I figured the car was capable of a 529. That's the number we had in our mind. We were going to run the first 520 in the history of the sport. So we hopped up the motor a little bit, richened the injector, never gave it a thought, the fact it was going to use a lot of fuel. They had rained on the track was completely clean. It was just a bad call on my part. We misjudged the traction of the strip. Should have had a little more weight on the front end. The injectors were using too much fuel, so the tank was about 2 gallons light before I left the line. There was a little situation of a fuel leak, and Herb held me there a little bit as he tightened it. All of this was contributing, and so consequently the tank's getting lighter and lighter. The car powered up about a foot and a half off the ground. Would have still been all right, but it accelerated so hard that the wind went under it and caused the car to get up too high. Well, then I lifted as it was up about 45 degrees. It should have stayed there and went on down, but it didn't. It was already moving so hard with that air under it, it went straight up, and I had no control over it, and over she went backwards. And I'll tell you what, I thought I was in big trouble. Those people were witness to a 20th century miracle. When that car was up in the air, all I was doing was hanging on for dear life. I had nothing to do whatsoever with the way the car landed, the way it bounced, the way it stopped so quick because of the burnout backwards. I wasn't doing any of that. That's my guardian angel just looking out after me. That's all I can say. What else can I say? I certainly wasn't driving the car. Here I am in one piece. I actually got out of the car on my own power. I could have been killed. I could have killed somebody. The car could have went into the crowd. It could have hit some safety crew people. It could have done anything. It didn't do any of that. It was just an unfortunate thing that happened. The car was fixed in about a week, and away we went.
What's it like to ride in a raging inferno?
Well, about 600 feet, it felt like she kicked a rod or something, set the headers on fire, and we had an oil fire. I hit the fire system, and at this point, I'm not sure whether it worked or not, but it burned the right rear tire off, and as soon as it burned that, I was out of control. I was on fire inside the car, and trying to get her stopped is all I know. My chutes had burned off, so just a matter of trying to get her stopped and keep her on the track.
Has this ever happened to you before?
I've had a fire before, but nothing this bad.
What goes through your mind when something like that happens?
Well, you can't panic, and you know you're on fire, you got things to do, you leave it in God's hands to take care of you at that point.
You're so pumped up after a run that you start shaking and stuff because the adrenaline's so pumped up. You know, especially after a big race, you know, you beat like the Gravediggers, the Bigfoots. The adrenaline's such a rush. You're so pumped up. Times it's hard to undo your helmet. You know, it'd take you a good 2-3 hours after a while to cool down, to get relaxed. You know, to kind of get back to normal life again. For the track, but in a sense you gotta be just a little bit afraid, you know, because there's that fine line and that limit, just how far you can take it. You gotta be just a little bit afraid to take it that far in order to keep the truck on all four wheels and go to the next round.
Let's show him what's out.
We'll stay. Show where it's at.
Let's
Where
do
we
it.
going this time?
Trying to go to 690 or 89.
689? All right. Got to do it. Do it. No, we can do it.
I have a two-stage system in my car, and there's two switches that operate it. I was so rushy in the car, thank God, that I went to flip both of the switches and hit one. The car stalled on me on the starting line. I consistently tried to switch the switch. When I looked up, the guy was in front of me. I had an accident 2 years ago. A guy crossed lanes here at this same particular track. I stayed in that lane, I tore up my car. This time I decided to change lanes and give it gas. And I lucked out that time.
A funny car could be a very dangerous animal. The first round at Bristol, the car hydraulic the cylinder head, oil got under the tire, the car exploded, caught on fire. Richard drove the car to the end of the track, it crashed into the guardrail and totally destroyed itself. That was one pass, and we went from a complete funny car to no funny car. These cars are very costly, and that was very costly to us because we lost the entire race car. It takes around $10,000 an event. You could very easily spend $400,000 in a year if you have a very economical racing operation. Some racing teams spend as much as $1 million, $1.3 million to race their funny cars for 19 events.
Since racing.
And then I stepped up. I got the idea for this Ford Fuel Funny car through Tom McEwen. That 57 Chevy looked awful lonely being out there racing by itself. So what's better than the rivalry of the Ford and Chevy? So this is what we put together. The best times this car has run is a 570, which was last night at Atco Raceway. And that 570 was in 1,000 feet. So I'm sure it has a little bit more ET in there. My name is Paul Ruth. This is my 1956 Nostalgia Fuel Funny car. This car was hand-built, these two hands and many others with it. We worked on this car for a year and a half, fiberglass body. It's a replica of a 56 Ford. Now we also have a good friend in Miami, Florida, Darryl Gwen and family. We owe a lot to them. The engine that's in this car was their engine. It was the engine that they went 490. I left the starting line, it felt good, it was a real nice ride. All of a sudden, the left side of the car fell down. Well, when it fell down, I didn't have that feeling ever. And the next thing I knew, the body flew off the car. But when I could see where I was at, I got back over on my side of the track, and my foot must have touched the throttle a little bit, and I think that straightened the car out totally, and I came to a stop. Since I've been racing since the 50s, I've been through quite a bit. Never really serious accidents, but I always think of those things. I always think, what will I do when the time comes? Right now, I feel sorry for the guy that has to use the bag to clean up my oil mess on the racetrack.
In the first round today. Ralph crashed. Yeah, I didn't see that happen at all. We ran pretty good that first round. I think we ran a 210. with a 5:10 elapsed time. So this thing moved down the racetrack real quick. I didn't get to see anything, but I haven't seen any videos since then. And but people say that he's up, he's moving, he's walking, everything's fine, he's perfect. And that just goes to show you the safeness when you're inside the safety capsule. Well, the capsule's done not only just for fuel racing, it's done a whole bunch for all of drag boat racing. You know, as you can see behind me, you know, you sit in an enclosed cockpit with an F-16 fighter windshield at the top of you. It makes the sport extremely safe, you know. You could see crashes. We've had crashes this year. The guys get out and walk away. You know, you're not seeing no fatalities, no major injuries whatsoever. And, you know, when you can have a sport like that where nobody's getting hurt, that's just spectacular.
Blown fuel hydros, the most dangerous and unpredictable of all motorsports. To some, they're scary. To others, like Eddie Hill, a true challenge.
I saw a drag boat race, and then in less than 30 days, I had my own boat after the time I saw my first one. That bit me real quick and real hard, the drag boat bug did.
It was at Firebird Lake in 1984 where Hill had the worst accident in drag boat history. It almost ended his career as well as his life. Hitting the water at over 200 miles an hour, he was severely injured from head to toe, with the most serious injuries to his eyes. It happened so fast, the cause remains a mystery.
The cause of the accident, nobody knows. We've looked at the videotape of that run over and over, probably 200 times. And there's nothing really wrong. The boat didn't have any sort of mechanical problem. I didn't make a driver error. The water was good. The run was almost perfect. Beautiful, smooth rooster tail. The boat set up here and ran 217 miles an hour, just very nice. No particular reason for it. In fact, that's one reason that we don't do it anymore, is because since we don't know what caused it, we don't know how we could prevent it. You got to remember, when I first got into this, nobody was running over 200 mile an hour with any degree of regularity. It had only been, I think, 1 or 2 times anybody had been over 200. And the boat racing was fairly safe, and then as we got over 200, it began to get a little edgy, and then 210 was a little out, and then 220, and then finally when we ran at 229, by that point of development, by that stage of development, it was very, very dangerous. It was almost a toss of a coin whether you'd make it all the way through or crash. Well, there's a dozen guys that I could name right quick that aren't here anymore that used to run in the top fuel class.
Drag boat racers are a special breed. Although they realize they face death every time they get into their boat, the challenge of speed on water is like a magnet to them, and they continue to race. Fatalities are frequent in drag boat racing. Eddie has seen at least 25 of his friends die in crashes.
The most potentially dangerous part of it, the scariest part, was that when I hit the water face first, and the water got in behind my eyes and nearly pushed my eyes out. And I had a black eye all the way from my hairline to my hairline, and the whites of my eyes just turned blood red and stayed that way for a couple of months. I wondered at one time whether the whites of my eyes would ever be white again, but nearly lost my sight, so that was the scariest part. Everything else, the concussion and a puncture wound through my jaw, broken leg, arm, wrist bone. I've still got a little sinkhole right here that didn't heal up exactly right. This finger was broken in 4 places just between here and here. I had my Texas A&M ring on here, and it hit the water hard enough to break the bone 4 places just in that little short span. I can't even take credit for having enough sense to want to quit after that. But Gary Martin, who was sponsoring us at the time, had more sense than I did. He said, "No, I'm not going to put you back in another boat. If I do, it'll kill you, and I don't want that on my conscience." And I finally realized, after being out of the boat long enough to back up and take a little more objective look at it, that he was probably right. We had been talking about getting back on the asphalt for a couple, 3 years anyway, and wanting to do that. So it made a convenient time to make the switch, really, because we were out of boats and out of boat hardware. We fished that engine up off the bottom of the lake and out of Davy Jones' locker, and bought a CU's dragster and went from there.
disintegrated. It was good to see that he only got a broken arm out of it, but it's pretty neat. I enjoy it.
thing going back.
Motocross, the track and field Olympics of motorcycling.
Disintegrating in the lights. 560 laps time, he gets the win, 240 miles per hour. But as you saw, the body completely disintegrating in the lights. Unbelievable, he went right through the lights. The body just completely disintegrated. Roof hatch came off, pieces were flying okay all over the place.
Okay, a tough break for Henry Phillips. What happened?
Well, we were on a real good pass. We ran a 560 on that one, but we got down to about 1,000 feet. The body started coming apart. And we've been patching on it all weekend, so it just collapsed in the lights and made a convertible out of it. So we'll just have to try again next weekend.
Funny car on fire, trying to bring it to a halt. Fire pouring out the back of the car, burning the parachutes off. The ambulance, the fire crew on their way down. Hoffman's got the car stopped. He hops out the roof hatch and he looks okay. The car is sitting in the middle of the track, still burning. The fire crew arriving on the scene.
How you feel, Al?
Great.
What happened?
Kicked a rod out. It laid down for a second. I didn't have a chance to get my foot out of it.
Good?
Yeah, all right. It's a little warm.
blast from a nitro-powered explosion lasts only a second, but its effects often remain much longer. Usually, the driver escapes injury. Protected by a multi-layered fire suit and onboard fire extinguishers, he rides out the fireball from its center.